Hello and welcome to a fully charged news update. Now, just a warning, there might be a tiny bit of ranting in this episode. It's a couple of rants. There won't be big rants, there'll be kind of rantettes. First bit of news, it's now mandatory in the European Union for electric cars to make a low pitch warning sound when travelling at low speed. I'm absolutely fine with that. Now, all the electric cars I've driven recently all have that noise anyway, all except for Tesla. So Tesla will have to install it in their cars. I just want to go through a tiny little bit of logical thinking behind what instigated this legislation. So the fear is, I'm assuming it's based on fear, obviously fear of the unknown, because electric cars are new and a lot of people have said, and I've heard it many times, they're silent, I won't hear them coming and they will run me over. A bit like a sort of a panther crawling up behind you, can't hear it coming. It's a kind of really primal fear. The only slight issue with that is that there's a driver in the car. And so if they come up behind you silently, I mean, it's debatable how silent electric cars are. I'll get to one specific point in a minute. That driver has got to want to kill you. They'll see you in front of them and they'll go, oh, that person can't hear me, I'll run them over. And obviously there would be no legal consequences for that whatsoever for that driver. Just fine. Just happened, officer. It just happened. They were walking in front of me, they didn't hear me coming, I ran them over. And the policeman would just immediately say, oh, I beg your pardon, didn't want to bother you. Carry on your journey. Cars are still dangerous. They're not more dangerous because they're electric. That would be the argument, except for this one specific point, which I don't know, and I'm very happy to be corrected, but I don't know has been covered in this specific legislation. At the moment, what it is, it's cars going forwards have to go, they make those noises, so you can go, oh, that's an electric car coming, going past me on the street. I better not walk out in front of it. Anyway, moving on to the very specific thing, and that is in car parks. So if you're in a car park, say at a supermarket, and you put your shopping in the back, close the back, get in the car, reverse, at that point, that car is so quiet, there is no audible warning system for anyone who's walking past. Now, if someone else is walking past behind you as you're reversing out with their shopping and they're a bit distracted, they're covering their shopping, they're holding on to the hand of their child or whatever with a pushchair, all those things, that is a dangerous moment. It's probably not life-threatening, but it could certainly cause an injury and certainly cause enormous stress. At that point, you've got to be really careful. This is from experience of driving electric cars for 10 years. Really careful as you reverse out. All electric cars that I've driven are fitted with reversing cameras. So you have a very wide angle camera that shows you what's directly behind you and below, so in case there's a child there and you can't see them. But what I want is a reversing sound in cars. That's what I really would like. You put it into reverse and it goes, I mean, if it was a Nissan Leaf, this Nissan Leaf is reversing. Renault Zoe, this Renault Zoe is reversing, please look out. i3, BMW i3. Stand back, this i3 is reversing, warning, warning. That's a very bad German accent. My favourite, of course, would be the Tesla. I want the Tesla, it's made in California, to be really laid back. I don't want to hassle you, dude, but I'm reversing, no stress intended, but I'm really going backwards, so look out, yeah? Anyway, so reversing, I think a reversing sound would be very good. And the forward sound is, in my mind, utterly irrelevant. So now I want to quickly look at the highs and lows of renewable development in the UK. Highs first, because this is amazing. This is a story that Johnny and I did mention recently on a Fully Charged podcast, which is available. If you go to fullycharged.show and look under the podcast, you can find it easily. They're available in all formats on all podcast delivery systems. Now, I mean, the main intention for when I first started making Fully Charged was to try and highlight the positive stories that are coming out about renewables, about electric vehicles and future transportation and energy systems. And that's really my main intention. And it's sometimes quite hard work, but this is an easy story. And not only that, this was a story that was reported in The Telegraph, which is not exactly a tree-hugging, greeny, lefty, liberal, progressive newspaper. No, it's the staunch, loud voice of the British Conservative Party. So, but they reported that for the first time since the Industrial Revolution, Britain is producing more electricity from renewables than from fossil fuels. And this isn't just on one specific day when it's very sunny or a specific day when it's very windy. This is over the whole year. That is wind, solar, hydro and nuclear. These are zero carbon generating systems, zero carbon. Big debate about nuclear, we're not going to talk about that, but whatever your opinions of it are, it is a zero carbon generating system while it's running. Don't talk about building it. Don't mess up my figures. Or looking after the nuclear waste afterwards. Just shut up about that. So in 2009, 10 years ago, 75.6% of our electricity was generated by burning fossil fuels, gas and coal. Over 3/4 of our electricity, a mere 22% was coming from zero carbon sources. So what is happening is we're buying, well, virtually no coal. Coal is now generating over the year 3%. 3%, that's almost nothing. And gas is going down. So we're not buying as much gas as we were from Norway. Because, you know, we give Norway enormous amounts of money to buy gas. And what do they do with that money, those crazy Norwegians? Do you know what they do? They put it in a sovereign wealth fund that benefits the entire society. How stupid is that? They don't just give it to some very, very rich people and who hold on to it and fight to the death to keep all that money like we do here in this country. That's much more sensible. They're crazy in Norway. They've spread it equally across their whole society. They fund their electric car program through it. They run their entire electricity generating from renewables. You've got to laugh at Norwegians. They're just bonkers. That's not sustainable. They still make lots and lots of money out of selling natural gas around the world. That's what's funding them, but at least they're holding on to it. Their sovereign wealth fund is the biggest in the world, isn't it? And it's a very small country with a very small population. It's in the trillions of dollars, their sovereign wealth fund. Just saying. Anyway, now it can't all be positive because that is an amazing piece of news, but this story that was in the Solar Power portal is just plain depressing. I'm sure I don't need to point out to anyone who lives outside the UK that currently we don't really have a government. We don't really have a functioning government, but somehow one piece of legislation managed to get through the kind of quagmire, discombobulated mess that is Whitehall, which is where our government is situated. And that was legislation to increase VAT, value added tax, on solar panels and domestic electricity storage from 5% to 20%. And at the same time, they did not increase the VAT on coal. When you buy coal to burn in your house, to heat your house, that's at 5%. So 20% on solar, but keep it low for coal. Let's encourage the burning of coal in domestic properties in the UK. What is more and more annoying about this is this piece of legislation was pushed through the legislative system by an MP called Jesse Norman, a Tory MP from Hereford who I have met twice, and I've sat on 2 panels with him at the Hay Literature Festival in Hereford. It's a beautiful festival, amazing event. I sat on this panel with Jesse Norman. He's a charming man, funny. He laughed at my jokes, which always endears me to people. And we shook hands. I was charming, and I remained politically neutral in his company. I didn't have a go at him about anything. I just want to point out now, that's not going to happen again. That is the most ludicrous, stupid, retrogressive, pro-fossil fuel piece of legislation that this stupid, incompetent government has done. And boy, oh boy, have they done some stupid and incompetent things, particularly in the last 3 years. Moving on. Light entertainment. So a couple of weeks ago, my Twitter stream became absolutely flooded with comments all of a sudden. Anyway, hydrogen is the future. That was literally a tweet. Anyway, hydrogen is the future. Where did that come from? So, of course, I pretty quickly worked it out. It was an episode of Top Gear, the new form of Top Gear with the new presenters. Let's try someone else. We've been flogging this dead horse for years at the BBC. Come on, we can make it work. Let's get some new presenters in tired, dusty old format, but they're still slogging away with it. Anyway, so new episode of Top Gear where they slagged off electric cars. So tedious and boring. Interesting contrast, balance at the BBC, was a really good and positive review about the Tesla Model 3 by Chris Harris, and he really loved the Tesla Model 3. In fact, he loved it so much, he went out and ordered one. And he came up with some classic Clarkson-esque lines to describe this car. He called it, the Model 3 is an AK-47 disguised as a butter knife. That's a classic! That's a beautiful line. It's a big moment in the history of the motor car. The electric future is happening right now. So that's what he was saying, sitting behind the wheel of a Tesla Model 3. So, you know, it's balanced. The BBC is balanced. It's all about balance. Except generally when it comes to electric cars, where it's massively biased, particularly the Today programme on Radio 4. Why? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. You say that on something like the BBC and a huge swathe, which is the base audience of Top Gear, go, oh God, I don't have to worry about electric cars, they're rubbish. I've been reassured yet again, once again, because every single generation of the hundreds of people who've presented Top Gear have always slagged off electric cars, because that's their job. But I did have this fantastic tweet as a result of all this. This one is a beauty. This is from a tweeter called Steamer Harold. It's absolutely brilliant. As long as you have to sit and wait while your car charges partway through a journey, it will remain an inferior practical proposition to the petrol engine. I've just put 80 litres into my V12's tank. Notice he had to point out how many cylinders he had, which is obviously a way of bolstering his slightly delicate masculinity. I've just put 80 litres into my V12's tank, 400 miles range in a minute. Boom, job done. I mean, there's no argument with that. Steamer Harold, you could pump that fossil fuel into your V12, fill the tank, drive off in a minute. In a minute you could do it. I think that you can only do it in a minute if you actually stole the petrol. I think if you had to go in, wait in the queue up, pay for it, walk back out to the car, it's probably really 5 or 6 minutes. I'm just saying that. I mean, I don't want to be picky, but you know, I don't know how you can do it in 1 minute. So there's the list of advantages of electric cars. It's 86 pages long. Here's the list of advantages of petrol cars. Bing! One thing that you can fill the tank quickly. Here's the other massive disadvantage of Steamer Harold's V12. V12, 2,500 moving parts in a V12 engine. Imagine how much energy it was required to make that clanking old Victorian technology turn over. Thousands of moving parts. And what do moving parts mean? They mean friction. What does friction mean? Waste of energy, generating heat, not making the vehicle move along. It is pathetic, dated, broken technology, and we need to move on, Steamer Harold. But you keep filling your fossil tank in 1 minute, because that is an advantage that outweighs everything else, regardless of the stupid pedestrians that are walking along the street while you drive past in your V12. Jesus wept. 80 litres of fuel in the UK costs over £100. So it works out he's burning through 23 pence every mile that he drives. 23 pence. Now, on a car with equivalent, no, not equivalent performance, because you've got to really go down electric cars to get something that's as slow as a V12. But say a Tesla Model S P100D, which would leave that car tragically trailing behind. It would be so slow. Would cost maybe 5 pence a mile to drive at the absolute most if you use expensive electricity, more like 2 to 3. Steamer Harold, you make me laugh. You make my day. You really did cheer me up that day. I mean, if you like watching Top Gear, it's absolutely fine. I used to watch it all the time with the old lot, but you know, the new lot, the new lot leave me a little bit cold, a bit boring. But they're trying. Now, as any of you who live in the UK will know, and around the Northern Hemisphere, it's been a lovely summer recently. We've had some actual sunshine finally in the UK. It's been lovely. But it hasn't been quite like that in France. So last week, France reported that they just experienced their hottest day ever. It was nearly 46 degrees, 45.9 degrees centigrade, their highest temperature that they've ever recorded. And of course, like the UK, France has been recording their daily temperatures for about the last 350 to 400 years. So there's very good records, and that is the hottest day they've ever had. They had a very hot summer last summer, but this was even hotter. Now, I am not saying that is climate. I'm saying that's weather. I think the important thing to look at is the 10 hottest years globally have all taken place. This is over the whole world, with temperature records over the whole world. The 10 hottest years have been in the last 12 years. We don't talk about climate change on Fully Charged for numerous reasons. One, it's kind of a really complicated other topic that requires enormous amounts of learning and understanding. It's beyond my understanding, but I do accept the opinions and the research and the facts and the science that 96% of global scientists agree on. They so agree on it. What I think this clearly shows us, without any question, that we do need to change the way we generate electricity, very primarily the way we transport ourselves. So that's enough. I don't want to talk about that anymore. I just want to thank a few people before I go, a few amazing Patreon supporters who support Fully Charged for $10 a month or more. It's incredible generosity. I just can't believe it. I thought there was going to be like half a dozen people. There's over 600 names on the list at the moment. But this is 10 of them, and they are amazing. So I'd like to thank Alex Jones, Kwang Won Kim, Bruce Birch, Rob Harris, Bobby Tetzel, Kyle Wright, Jeremy Cook, Saul Goldfarb, Mark Pym, and Peter Reynolds. Thank you very, very much for your support. We really genuinely appreciate it properly, for reals. Please do subscribe to Fully Charged. Please do have a look at the Patreon link. Please do press the dingy ding 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 bell thing. And that's it. As always, if you have been, thank you for watching.